Rohan was a quiet man who loved peaceful mornings. Every day before work, he liked to sit near his backyard pool with a cup of tea. The sound of water gave him calm feelings, and the smell of the flowers around the fence made him smile. His house was small but beautiful. He had worked hard for years to make it a comfortable place. The pool was his proudest work. He had saved money for 3 years to build it. He wanted a small space where he could relax during summer without going to crowded public pools. But lately, that peace had started to disappear. His neighbor, Karen, who was also the head of the Homeowners Association, had become a constant problem. She was known in the neighborhood for her love of rules. She always carried a clipboard and walked around checking small things. If someone painted their door a new color, she would write a note. If grass grew 2 inches taller than allowed, she would send a warning letter. Many people in the neighborhood were scared of her. Rohan had tried to stay away from her attention. He kept his house clean, trimmed his lawn, and followed every rule written in the HOA book. But one summer morning, everything changed. It was a hot day and Rohan decided to clean his pool. He removed the cover, checked the filters, and filled it with fresh water. He even added a few floating lights because he wanted to enjoy an evening swim later. Just as he finished, he heard a voice from behind the fence. "Rohan, I hope you know the rule about pool usage," said Karen in her sharp tone. Rohan turned and saw her standing there with her usual clipboard. She wore dark sunglasses and had a serious look. "What rule are you talking about?" Rohan asked. "The HOA allows community members to use all shared areas, including pools," she said. "You cannot keep it only for yourself." Rohan was confused. "This pool is on my land," he replied. "I built it with my own savings. It is not a community pool." Karen shook her head. "It is within HOA boundaries, so it must be available for everyone. You are part of the community, and you cannot separate your property like that." Rohan tried to explain, but she did not listen. She wrote something on her clipboard and walked away without saying goodbye. He stood there for a moment, wondering what would happen next. The following morning, Rohan found a letter in his mailbox. It had the HOA logo printed on top. Inside was a fine notice. The letter said he was fined for private use of a shared facility. The amount was not small. It shocked him. He read the paper 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. It said he must pay the fine within 10 days or face further action. He felt angry but also helpless. He looked through the HOA documents he had signed years ago when he bought the house. He read every rule carefully. There was no mention that a private pool should be open for community use. It was clearly stated that any construction done inside private boundaries was personal property. He realized Karen had made this rule herself. She must have convinced the other members of the HOA board to agree with her. That afternoon, when Rohan returned from work, he saw something that made him even more upset. 2 children from nearby houses were swimming in his pool. They were splashing water and playing loudly. He went to them and asked kindly, "Did your parents allow you to come here?" One of them smiled and said, "Karen said we can use it. She said it's everyone's pool now." Rohan's patience started to fade. He told the children to leave politely. After they left, he sat down and took a long breath. He could not believe how unfair this was. The next day, things got worse. When Rohan came home from the office, he saw Karen sitting on a lounge chair near his pool. She had brought her own drink and towel. She waved at him as if everything was fine. "Good evening, Rohan," she said. "I hope you don't mind. The kids told me how nice your pool feels." Rohan stood still for a moment. "You cannot just walk into my property," he said firmly. She smiled and replied, "As head of the HOA, I am allowed to inspect community facilities. You should not be rude to me." That was enough. Rohan felt a strong sense of frustration rise inside him. For months he had kept calm, thinking problems could be solved with patience. But now he saw that patience was useless against someone like Karen. That night, Rohan decided he would not let anyone walk over him anymore. He took out his toolbox and started planning. He spent hours reading about property laws and HOA limits. He made notes, highlighted rules, and even watched legal advice videos online. He learned that the HOA had no right to take over his private space. He just needed to prove it correctly. The next evening, Rohan made a decision. He went outside with a flashlight and inspected the pool fence. He checked every lock, every hinge, and every screw. He replaced the old latch with a strong metal lock. Then he placed a clear sign that said, "Private property, no entry without owner permission." He stood there for a moment, feeling a quiet satisfaction. It was not about anger anymore. It was about standing up for fairness. He was not doing anything wrong. He only wanted his peace back. When Karen passed by the next morning, she noticed the lock and the sign. Her face turned red. "You cannot do this," she shouted from the sidewalk. Rohan stayed calm. "It's my property," he said, "and I have all the papers to prove it." Karen pointed at him. "You will regret this. The HOA will take strict action." Rohan did not respond. He turned and went inside his house. He could feel the battle beginning, but this time he was ready. Inside his living room, he sat down with his cup of tea. The sun was setting outside, and the sound of water in the pool returned to its calm rhythm. He smiled slightly. For the first time in weeks, he felt like himself again. He knew Karen would not give up easily, but neither would he. He had built this home with honesty, and he was not going to let anyone misuse his kindness. The next few days would not be easy, yet Rohan was ready to face whatever came next. He looked at the glowing water one more time and whispered softly, "This is my home, and I will protect it." The next morning, Rohan woke up early. He wanted to make sure everything around his pool was safe. The metal lock he had installed the night before shined in the sunlight. The sign he placed looked clear and bold. It said, "Private property, no entry." He stood there for a moment, feeling proud that he finally took action. He went back inside and started making breakfast. As he sipped his tea, he noticed movement outside his window. Karen was standing near his fence again, staring at the lock. She had her clipboard as always. Her expression showed disbelief and anger. She called out, "Rohan, you are breaking HOA rules. Remove that lock immediately." Rohan walked outside calmly. "Karen, I told you already this pool is mine. It is inside my property line. I checked all documents. There is no rule that says I must let others use it." Karen's tone became sharp. "You are refusing to cooperate with the community. The HOA board will not like this." Rohan replied, "If the board wants to talk, I will show them my papers. I am not afraid." Karen left without saying anything more, but her angry steps showed that this was not the end. By afternoon, Rohan received another letter. It was again from the HOA. The paper said he must attend a board meeting in 2 days to explain his behavior. It also mentioned that his fine had doubled because he refused to obey. Rohan read the letter carefully. He felt annoyed but also ready. He spent the evening collecting all his property documents. He marked the map that showed his land boundaries and the area where his pool stood. He even took photos showing that the pool was built fully inside his land. He wanted to be fully prepared for the meeting. The next day, when Rohan came home from work, he noticed that someone had tried to open the pool gate. The new lock had scratch marks. He checked the camera he had installed near the backyard. The footage showed 2 teenagers trying to climb over the fence. They had been told by Karen that the pool was free to use. Luckily, they left when they saw the camera light turn on. Rohan sighed. He did not want any trouble with the young people, but this situation was getting out of control. He decided to send an email to the HOA board explaining everything before the meeting. He attached photos, property maps, and copies of the purchase documents. He politely explained that Karen was misunderstanding the rule. The next morning, the reply came from the HOA secretary. It said they would still hold the meeting as planned. Karen had already filed an official complaint saying that Rohan's behavior was against community spirit. The board wanted to hear both sides before deciding. Rohan took a deep breath and decided to face it with confidence. 2 days later, the meeting took place in the community hall. There were about 10 members sitting around a long table. Karen sat at the center with her usual clipboard. She looked proud, as if she had already won. Rohan entered the room carrying a small folder. The secretary asked him to sit across from the board. Karen began to speak. "This resident has refused to let other community members use the pool. He has also locked the gate and posted a sign that disrespects the community. Such actions destroy harmony among neighbors. The board members nodded and whispered to one another. Then the secretary looked at Rohan. Please explain your side. Rohan opened his folder and spoke in a calm but clear voice. The pool is not part of any shared area. It is built inside my private property. Here are the official maps from the housing department. You can see that the land boundary ends 2 meters away from the fence. The HOA rulebook does not mention any shared pool in this section. The HOA has no right to force me to share something I built myself. He passed the papers to the board. Everyone started reading. After a few minutes, one of the older members looked up. It seems he is right. The pool is inside his land. Karen tried to interrupt, but we must keep unity in the community. If one person keeps things private, others will start doing the same. Rohan replied, I am not against unity. I always follow the rules, but I cannot allow anyone to misuse my kindness or my space. The room became silent. The board discussed among themselves for a few minutes. Finally, the secretary looked up and said, We will review these documents with the city records and give our decision next week. Rohan nodded politely and left the room. Karen's face showed frustration, but she could not stop him. That night, Rohan felt a little lighter. He had finally spoken for himself. Still, he knew Karen would not stop easily. She had power in the HOA and friends on the board. He needed to stay alert. The next few days passed quietly. The lock remained untouched and no one entered his property. Rohan went to work, took care of his garden, and tried to return to normal life. But one evening, as he watered his plants, he saw Karen talking to a few neighbors. They were standing together, whispering and pointing toward his house. Later that night, he heard someone throw a small stone at his gate. When he went outside, no one was there. He started feeling uncomfortable in his own home. To protect himself, Rohan decided to install more cameras and lights around his yard. He also set up a motion alarm near the pool gate. He wanted proof if anyone tried to break in again. A week later, the HOA called for another meeting. This time, Rohan walked in with confidence. The board had verified his documents with city records. The secretary read the final decision aloud. The board confirms that the pool is inside Mr. Rohan's private property. The HOA has no authority to enforce community access. Therefore, all fines against him are canceled. The HOA will also send a notice to stop trespassing on his property. Rohan felt relief spread through him. Karen sat quietly, her face pale with anger. The other board members thanked Rohan for his patience. Some even apologized for the trouble. When he reached home that evening, the first thing he did was sit near his pool. The water sparkled under the soft lights. For the first time in weeks, he felt true peace. But his calm did not last long. The next day, he found a note slipped under his door. It had no name written on it. The note said, You may have won the rule, but you lost your neighbors. Rohan read the message twice and smiled sadly. He understood it was from Karen or one of her friends. Yet he did not let it bother him. He knew he had done the right thing. Still, deep down, he had a feeling that Karen would try something again. She was not the kind of person to let go easily. And he was right. The next move she made would surprise everyone in the entire neighborhood. After the meeting, Rohan felt a mix of relief and caution. The HOA had finally accepted that his pool was private, and all fines were canceled. He spent the next morning cleaning the pool thoroughly. He scrubbed the tiles, polished the ladder, and added freshwater lilies in floating baskets. The water looked crystal clear, and the small lights he had placed around the edges glowed softly under the sun. But Rohan could not forget the note slipped under his door. Someone wanted him to feel unwelcome in his own home. It reminded him that Karen's influence in the neighborhood was strong. People tended to follow her instructions, and he knew she would not stop easily. He had won the rule, but he still had to protect his space. He decided to take full control. The pool was his favorite place, and he would not allow anyone to disturb his peace again. He bought a new gate lock, stronger than the first one, and reinforced the fence corners. He also installed motion sensors that would flash lights if someone tried to enter the yard after sunset. Rohan then created a small schedule for himself. He would swim in the early morning and late evening, avoiding any possible encounters. He even invited a few trusted friends over for private pool days. They enjoyed games, music, and quiet conversations. This way, Rohan could enjoy his pool safely without worrying about unwanted visitors. Karen, however, was still active. She walked around the neighborhood daily, speaking to people and reminding them about the HOA rules. Many neighbors felt uncomfortable and did not want to be involved in conflicts. But a few of them came to Rohan quietly to share their thoughts. One neighbor named Lena approached him one afternoon. "Rohan, I know you are right about the pool," she said. "Karen always wants control, but she is wrong this time." "You should not worry. Your pool is yours," Rohan smiled. "Thank you, Lena. It feels good to know someone understands. But we must be careful. Karen can be tricky." Lena nodded. "I will support you quietly. You deserve peace in your own home." After their talk, Rohan felt encouraged. He realized that not everyone in the neighborhood agreed with Karen. Some just stayed silent because they did not want trouble. But there were people who noticed fairness and honesty, and they quietly supported him. That evening, Rohan spent hours in his pool. The water was warm and the soft lights reflected on his face. He felt calm again, but his mind was alert, always planning the next step. He wanted to make sure no one could disturb him again. A few days later, Karen tried to enter the backyard again. She walked up to the gate and shook it, calling out, "Rohan, I'm only checking if the rules are being followed." Rohan opened the window and spoke firmly. "Karen, the HOA confirmed that this pool is private. You are not allowed to enter my property without permission. Please leave." Karen's face turned red, but she did not argue further. She waved and walked away, muttering to herself. Rohan knew she would try other ways to challenge him. To make sure she could not interfere again, Rohan posted clear notices around the pool area. The sign said, "Private property, authorized access only." He also documented everything in a notebook. Each time someone approached or left a message, he wrote it down. He wanted proof in case the conflict continued. Weeks passed and Rohan started feeling more confident. The neighborhood slowly realized that he was serious about his privacy. Karen tried to persuade people to challenge him, but most neighbors avoided getting involved. They noticed that Rohan followed rules carefully and did not harm anyone. One sunny afternoon, Rohan invited a few friends for a small pool party. They played games, laughed, and enjoyed snacks by the water. The pool felt alive with happiness. Rohan watched the smiles and felt proud. This was the peace he had worked for, and no one could take it away. However, Rohan still remained cautious. He checked the cameras every night and updated the security system. He made sure the gate lock was always functional. He also started planting tall bushes around the fence corners to prevent anyone from climbing over. His pool became a safe zone, hidden from prying eyes, but still full of joy and light. One day, a letter arrived from the HOA. It was not a fine or a warning. It was a reminder about property rights and community rules. Rohan read it carefully. It praised residents who followed rules and emphasized respecting private property. He smiled. Finally, the board had clarified the boundaries. This gave him more confidence that he was fully protected. Even Karen seemed quieter for a few days. She walked past the house without looking at the pool. Rohan noticed that her attempts to control him were slowing down. The neighborhood seemed to respect his right to privacy. Rohan decided it was time to enjoy the pool without fear. He planned evening swims, reading books while floating, and even small gatherings with friends. He had found a balance between defending his property and enjoying it fully. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in pink and orange, Rohan floated in the water and reflected on everything. He realized that standing up for himself had not been easy, but it was necessary. If he had ignored the problem, he would have lost control of his own space. By taking careful steps, he had restored peace in his life. He also thought about his neighbors. Some had tried to challenge him, but others supported him quietly. He felt gratitude toward them. He understood that fairness and honesty could win, even in difficult situations. Rohan knew that life would always have challenges. But he had learned something important. Patience, preparation, and courage were the keys to protect what he valued. His pool was more than water and tiles. It was his freedom, his calm, and his joy. He would not let anyone take that away. That night he went inside, feeling calm and proud. He had faced the storm and come out stronger. The pool reflected the moonlight, peaceful and serene. Rohan smiled to himself, ready to face any challenge that might come next. Little did he know, Karen had not given up completely. She was planning her next move carefully. But Rohan had already learned to protect himself. Whatever she tried next, he would be prepared. And so, life around the pool returned to a quiet rhythm. The water shimmered under the soft lights. Rohan enjoyed his evening swimming, reading, and relaxing. For now, peace had returned, but the story of conflict, courage, and standing up for oneself was far from over. Rohan had finally restored peace around his pool. The lock was strong, the signs were clear, and the motion lights glowed at night. The water sparkled, reflecting the soft evening colors, and he could enjoy the pool without interruptions. He had learned to be careful and to protect what was his. But he knew Karen was still watching. She had stopped direct confrontations, but Rohan felt her presence in small ways. She walked past his yard slowly, spoke to neighbors quietly, and sent notes disguised as friendly advice. He could sense that she had not given up. Rohan decided he would stay prepared. He walked through his backyard, checking the cameras and gates. He made small improvements every week, making the fence stronger, adding taller bushes, and adjusting the lights to cover blind spots. He even created a small journal to record every unusual event. He wanted proof if Karen or anyone else tried to interfere again. One afternoon, Rohan received a call from a neighbor. The voice was nervous but kind. "Rohan, Karen is asking people to come and check the pool rules again. Some neighbors are confused. She wants to meet you." Rohan thought carefully. He did not want another fight, but he could not ignore the message. He agreed to a brief meeting, planning to speak clearly and calmly. That evening, he walked to the small community garden near his house. Karen was already there, surrounded by a few neighbors. She had her clipboard and looked confident. "Rohan, it is good you came," she said. "Some residents are confused about the pool rules. I just want to clarify things." Rohan nodded politely. "Karen, I have explained this many times. My pool is private. I have the documents to prove it. The HOA has confirmed it. I am happy to answer questions politely, but I cannot allow anyone to enter my property." Karen sighed and said, "You are very strict, but some neighbors still want community access. It is about fairness." Rohan smiled slightly. "Fairness is important, but rules matter more. My pool is private property. Everyone else has their own spaces. I cannot give away what is mine. That is fair to me, and it is fair to the law," the neighbors whispered quietly. Some looked unsure. They had seen how Karen acted, but they also respected Rohan's calm words. After a few minutes, Karen shook her head. "I still think this is wrong. But you are firm. I will report back to the board." Rohan nodded. "Thank you. I hope everyone will understand." When he returned home, he felt lighter. He knew Karen would not stop completely, but the meeting showed that many neighbors were starting to see things clearly. Rohan realized that calm and preparation often worked better than arguments. The next few days were peaceful. Rohan enjoyed his pool more than ever. He swam in the morning and read books while floating in the afternoon. He even planted small flowers along the edge of the pool. The water smelled fresh and clean, and the soft lights created a magical feeling in the evenings. One night, as he sat on the poolside chair, he reflected on the past weeks. He had faced fines, trespassing, notes under his door, and constant interference. But he had managed to protect his home calmly and legally. He felt proud. He also realized that standing up for oneself was not about anger. It was about patience, preparation, and clarity. By staying calm, collecting proof, and following the rules, he had defended his property without hurting anyone. Rohan continued to enjoy his pool. Friends came over quietly and they spent time swimming, playing games, and having small barbecues. Rohan even started keeping a small journal of happy moments, writing down the calm evenings, laughter, and bright sunsets over the water. However, Karen had one last attempt. A week later, she visited the HOA office and requested an official inspection. She argued that Rohan might be hiding community access rules. The HOA scheduled an official visit for the next morning. Rohan was ready. He reviewed all documents, made copies, and prepared a short explanation for the inspectors. When the officials arrived, Rohan greeted them politely. He showed the property maps, purchase papers, and even photographs showing the pool was inside his land. The inspectors walked carefully around the pool and yard. They asked a few questions and checked the fences. Rohan answered clearly, calmly, and with proof. After a thorough review, the lead inspector said, "Mr. Rohan, your pool is fully within your property. The HOA has no authority to force community access. All complaints about shared usage are invalid." Karen, standing nearby, looked surprised and frustrated. She had hoped to find some loophole, but there was none. The inspectors left after confirming Rohan's property rights. That evening, Rohan sat by the pool, finally feeling completely at ease. The water reflected the moonlight, and he could hear the quiet sounds of crickets in the garden. For the first time, he realized that peace could be achieved through patience, preparation, and fairness. The next morning, Rohan noticed that Karen did not walk past his house. She had stopped sending notes, and neighbors no longer mentioned the pool. Slowly, the neighborhood understood that Rohan was serious about protecting his space, and that he followed rules fairly. Rohan spent his summer enjoying his pool fully. He read books, played games, invited friends, and even hosted small gatherings. The pool had become a place of calm, happiness, and friendship. He had defended his property without causing harm to anyone. As the sun set over the water, Rohan realized how much he had grown. He had faced challenges, obstacles, and unfair treatment, but he had stayed calm and firm. He learned that courage did not always mean confrontation. Sometimes it meant preparation, knowledge, and self-respect. Rohan knew Karen could still complain in the future, but he felt confident. The pool was his space, and he would protect it. This time he knew that fairness, patience, and courage could win against unfairness and control. The lights of the pool reflected gently on the water. Rohan smiled. For now, he had peace, freedom, and the joy of his private space. He had turned challenges into lessons and obstacles into strength. And so, life at Rohan's house returned to calm and happiness. The pool glowed under the soft evening lights. Friends and neighbors respected his space. Karen's attempts to control him had ended. Rohan learned that standing up for oneself with patience, preparation, and fairness could bring lasting peace and happiness. The days after the inspection were calm. Rohan's pool sparkled under the sunlight, and he finally felt that the struggle was over. The HOA had confirmed that his pool was private, and Karen had no legal right to interfere. For the first time in weeks, Rohan could enjoy his backyard without worry. He woke up early, poured a cup of tea, and stepped onto the poolside deck. The water reflected the clear sky, and a gentle breeze moved the leaves in the garden. Rohan smiled. This was the peace he had been waiting for. Every evening he planned small activities to enjoy his pool and garden fully. Friends visited more often. Lena, the neighbor who had quietly supported him, came with her children one afternoon. Rohan, I am happy to see you relaxed, she said. It must feel good to have your space respected. Rohan nodded. It does, Lena. I have learned that staying calm and prepared is the best way to solve problems. My pool is my private space, and I will enjoy it responsibly. They spent the afternoon swimming, playing small games, and laughing. Rohan realized that joy could return when people respected each other's boundaries. He had not only protected his property, but had also restored his sense of freedom. Karen, however, did not give up completely. She still walked past his house occasionally, whispering to neighbors and observing. But Rohan no longer felt fear. He had learned to stay calm and prepared. He had cameras, motion sensors, reinforced fences, and clear signs. He had proof that his property was private. One evening, Rohan noticed Karen standing near the sidewalk holding her clipboard. She looked serious but not aggressive. She called out, Rohan, I hope you understand community spirit. Sharing is important. Rohan replied politely, I respect community spirit, Karen, but my property is private. Everyone else has their own space just as I have mine. That is fair for everyone. Karen frowned but did not respond further. She walked away quietly. Rohan watched her leave and felt calm. He understood that he had achieved a balance between standing firm and remaining respectful. The neighborhood slowly started respecting Rohan's boundaries. People realized that he had done nothing wrong, and that he had handled the situation politely and legally. Karen's attempts to control him lost influence. Neighbors no longer discussed the pool unless they wanted to ask politely for small advice. Rohan's daily routine returned to normal. He spent mornings swimming in the pool and afternoons tending his garden. He planted flowers, trimmed bushes, and added small lanterns along the fence. His backyard became a personal paradise. The pool water always stayed clear, the air smelled fresh, and the lights reflected beautifully at night. Rohan also enjoyed reading by the poolside. He kept a notebook where he wrote happy memories, small victories, and thoughts about fairness. He recorded the lessons he had learned during the conflict. He realized that patience, preparation, and calm words could overcome difficult situations. One Saturday, he decided to invite a few neighbors for a small barbecue. Lena brought snacks, and other neighbors came quietly, enjoying the food and swimming. The pool was full of laughter, smiles, and cheerful energy. Rohan felt proud that he could share small moments without compromising his privacy or letting anyone overstep. Karen did not attend. Rohan noticed that she had stopped trying to interfere directly. The neighbors, once influenced by her, now understood the situation and respected his property. Rohan's calm approach had won respect without creating hatred or conflict. By evening, Rohan sat on a lounge chair, looking at the pool lights reflecting in the water. He felt a sense of satisfaction and achievement. He had defended his space, enjoyed his pool, and also maintained respect for others. It was a balance he had not imagined he could achieve during the early days of the conflict. The neighborhood grew calmer. Children played in their yards and neighbors greeted each other politely. Karen still walked past occasionally, but her attempts to control Rohan lost strength. She realized that his preparation, documents, and calm approach could not be easily challenged. Rohan continued to enjoy his pool fully. Every day he spent time swimming, reading, or just relaxing by the water. Friends came over, laughter filled the air, and small celebrations were held. The pool had become a place of happiness, calm, and personal freedom. One late evening, Rohan looked at the sky as stars began to appear. The pool water reflected the moonlight beautifully. He smiled, thinking about the lessons he had learned. Courage was not always about confrontation. Sometimes it was about staying calm, knowing your rights, preparing carefully, and respecting others. Rohan also thought about the neighbors who quietly supported him. Their encouragement had helped him remain confident. He realized that fairness and honesty often inspire respect, even in difficult situations. The struggle with Karen had been long and frustrating. But in the end, Rohan had achieved what he wanted. He had protected his property, maintained peace, and restored his joy. The pool was no longer a source of stress, but a symbol of his calm strength and determination. Life slowly returned to normal. Rohan's evenings were peaceful, filled with gentle lights, soft water sounds, and quiet happiness. He knew that challenges might appear in the future, but he was ready. He had learned to stay calm, be prepared, and face obstacles with patience and fairness. The neighborhood learned a lesson as well. Respecting boundaries, understanding rules, and being fair to others became clearer to everyone. People realized that Rohan had handled the situation politely, legally, and successfully. Rohan's summer continued peacefully. He floated in the pool, read books, and enjoyed small barbecues with friends. The pool became a private paradise full of calm, joy, and light. Karen's influence faded slowly, and the neighborhood adjusted to respect Rohan's rights. One evening, Rohan lit all the lanterns around the pool and invited Lena over. They sat by the water, enjoying the gentle sounds and soft lights. Rohan smiled and said, "This is what I wanted all along. Peace and happiness in my own home." Lena nodded. "You did the right thing, Rohan. You handled everything calmly and fairly. That is why you won respect, not just the pool." Rohan looked at the shimmering water and thought about the journey he had taken. From confusion, fines, and trespassing to peace, happiness, and respect, the lessons were clear. Calmness, preparation, and patience always helped. Courage did not mean anger or conflict. Courage meant standing up for yourself with honesty and fairness. As the stars reflected in the water, Rohan felt completely at peace. The pool, the garden, and his home were now safe. He had won not just a personal space, but also self-respect and quiet happiness. He realized that life had taught him an important lesson. Challenges may appear unexpectedly, and unfairness may try to take your peace away. But with calm, preparation, and fairness, anyone can protect what matters most. Rohan leaned back, closed his eyes, and felt the gentle breeze. The pool shimmered under the soft lights reflecting the moon and stars. Finally, he had peace, freedom, and happiness. The story of conflict, courage, and patience had ended. The pool remained a place of calm and joy, and Rohan had shown that fairness and preparation could win against unfairness. Life continued peacefully in his home, and Rohan felt confident that he could handle any challenge with calm and strength.